instead of offering the job to an established GM or a guy that's been an assistant GM or anybody with front office experience, you're promoting the head coach there who's never done that? I mean, we would assume that if Danny Ainge was there and hired Brad Stevens, that Danny Ainge had final say in all personnel matters, and that Ainge was the guy that built the roster. And yesterday, upon this resignation, retirement, whatever you want to call it, Danny Ainge did make a crack like, well, now we can see if Brad can do it his way. So apparently there were some disagreements with how they built that roster. But at this juncture, you're just going to promote Brad Stevens to a job he's never held before? What about a guy like Sam Presti, who has tried to build a winner in Oklahoma City for many, many years and has done so successfully before the last couple of seasons, but is completely hamstrung by ownership spending, small market restrictions, and is just collecting draft picks, first rounders like they're Magic the Gathering cards, and giving him the keys to a franchise like the Celtics, a historic franchise. What about giving a young guy who's already done GM work or assistant GM work somewhere around the league the keys to one of the most historic franchises of the NBA? Why just promote a guy that's never done it before? That is such a huge risk here. And that comes back to this concern that the Celtics are too loyal, that Brad didn't want to coach anymore, so we got to find a job for him somewhere. You know, this reminds me of sometimes you have some aging broadcasters, and they're under contract with the company for many years, but they're not able to do the job anymore that they signed the contract for, and so you have to kind of hide them places. This might even happen in your company, where there's a business manager or an assistant to the regional manager, and they're like, oh, boy, we still got this guy under contract, and we got to pay him, and we can't get rid of him, but all right, just shove him here. Put him in the please, that's my stapler. Can I have my stapler back? That's basically what we're doing here. Or, teachers that have tenure, and you're like, well, we can't get rid of this guy, but he hasn't put together a decent, work plan, decent class plan in like 5 years. So, okay, put him in this school. Hide him there. This is kind of what's happening with Brad Stevens. So Stevens just didn't want to coach anymore, and they said, well, all right, why don't we make you the GM? Because what we're hearing is that Brad Stevens was burned out and has been burned out since coaching in the bubble last year. Okay. All right. But that doesn't mean that now you're the GM. I mean, imagine I was just like, guys, bosses here at Odyssey, CBS Sports Radio, I appreciate the loyalty. I appreciate you promoting me to the mornings. I really appreciate all the support over the years, but I'm just tired of doing this. The bubble's really, it's grinded me down. Working from home, it's been tough. So I'm not really ready for this. So can you make me like the program director instead? I mean, I know I have no experience running a station or running a network, but I'm just kind of tired of this, and you guys can trust me. I'll figure it out. Make me the program director. I can run everything. I mean, imagine that happened. Everybody on this network would be like, why did DA suddenly become the boss? He's never done that before. Oh, because he was tired? He was tired of hosting? Like, yeah, I'm just getting up this early has been tough, and I just want to work more than like 9 to 5 hours. So can you find me something there? Yeah, we'll just promote you to boss. Yeah, you could run the network. Oh, okay, good. That's what happened here. So this is a huge risk. Huge. Because it's a major offseason. Also, I mean, not for nothing, but wasn't Brad Stevens like boy wonder coach not long ago? Wasn't he prodigy coach? He brought Butler to 2 national championship game appearances, which is amazing. I'm not taking that away from him. That is amazing that Butler went to back-to-back national championship games. I mean, think about that. Butler still hasn't been anywhere close to that since he left 8 years ago now? And he brought the Celtics to 3 Eastern Conference Finals in the last 5 years. I mean, last year they were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and this year he's tired of coaching? He's 44 years old. He's only been coaching for 8 years of the NBA. He's 44. So what about all these guys that coach into their 70s? What? They didn't burn out? I mean, not for nothing, but the bubble? The bubble just, it's like it's been too hard since the bubble. You were at Disney World. I mean, you were coaching at Disney World with no fans, and you still made the Eastern Finals, and that burned you out? That's the story. That he's lost the love. He's been tired since the bubble. The bubble? Jimmy Butler opened up his own coffee shop inside his hotel in the bubble. That's what drove you out of coaching? The bubble? No, I'll tell you what happened. Brad Stevens is a mild-mannered guy. Brad Stevens doesn't have that intensity or anger that sometimes you need to flip a switch on a team. Kyrie Irving was a guy that tuned him out and probably soured him on some modern athletes. This year was a disaster. They were largely healthy all season long, and he didn't really have their ear, and Brad Stevens saw his effectiveness waning. He saw his effectiveness waning and said, I'm not getting results here. And the Celtics gave him a golden parachute. They gave him a golden parachute. Okay, well, we'll just promote you then to running the front office. Now, I'm sure there will be communal decisions made. I'm sure he's not going to be the only decision maker. And I'm sure that, Brad Stevens is not going to be without some type of guardrails in this job. But this whole thing is so weird. So Danny Ainge was tired of being GM or tired of being GM of the Celtics because he's not retiring from basketball, he says. Brad Stevens was tired of coaching, and the team was tired of each other. That's why they were a 7 seed this year. So basically, the 2020-2021 Celtics, we were just tired. Everybody was tired. Give us a mulligan here. I don't know. Something doesn't smell right, and I don't think the whole story is out. Now, maybe there was a power struggle between Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and the Celtics opted for the young guy. He'll be around longer. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe something else is at play. Maybe Danny Ainge felt that his effectiveness was waning and that he was getting too much criticism around town, even though, Ainge and Stevens are pretty well protected around town by Celtics honks. I don't know, but I just don't think the whole story is out here. Just everybody suddenly became tired of their job. And it was, okay, let's just reshuffle everything here. Danny can retire. Brad up to the front office. We'll hire Jason Kidd as the head coach, and voila. Again, Brad Stevens, by and large, for 8 seasons, has been free of criticism. Completely free of criticism around the NBA. He's gone to 3 Eastern Conference Finals. Boy wonder at Butler. Danny Ainge seen as a coup to hire him away from the college game. His out-of-timeout sets are so great. Everybody seems to think, besides a few of us who think he's overrated, that Brad Stevens is a pretty good, bright, smart basketball coach. And at 44 years old, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to coach anymore. All right. And let me tell you this. Indiana, I know that Hoosiers fans wanted him. I know that they threw a Godfather offer at him, reportedly, and he turned it down, which you could take one of two ways. He either retired from coaching altogether or stepped away from coaching altogether instead of even coaching Indiana. Or I would look at it this way. You'd rather not have him at Indiana. If he is burnt out of coaching at 44 years old, in a town where the Celtics are wildly the number 4 spot on the roster of criticism. The Sox get heat, the Bruins get heat, the Patriots had avoided the heat for a long time, but recently gotten plenty of heat. The Celtics are always protected. If you've burned out of coaching the Boston Celtics by 44 years old and you don't want to coach anymore, you shouldn't have been in Indiana because that's a much heavier lift. You got to recruit. You've got to text your kids constantly. You've got to keep them out of the transfer portal and then go beat Michigan and Ohio State. Indiana fans should be so happy he didn't take that job because if he took the job, clearly it was just going to be about the money and thinking it was easier than Boston. He doesn't want the work because getting bumped up to the front office is basically a breather. You don't have to do the press conferences. You don't have to be on the sidelines every single night. You get to work in unison with everybody else, assistant GMs and capologists and this and that. You know, apparently the pressure got to him. And at Indiana, it would have been him and him only because he's got to recruit and he's got to keep the kids there and he's got to win games and he's got to go up against big programs almost every week in the Big Ten. So you dodged a bullet, Indiana fans. Something doesn't smell right about this. It doesn't smell right. Something's not out there right now. But I don't know, Mraz. I mean, I love Andrew Kaplan. And I love Andrew Bogusch. I mean, these guys are buddies of mine, and I love them to death. But for all the times they insisted upon us that Brad Stevens was this great head coach and this smart basketball guy, and we were too hard on him. I mean, he's such a smart basketball guy. He's just retiring from coaching at 44 years old.
And let's call it like it is, D.A. He's not retiring. He's quitting coaching. He's quitting when the going got tough at Boston. We had how many guests, whether it was Shaughnessy or Washburn or Jeff Goodman. I mean, how many of these guys coming out of the Boston area have we had on where this was the first year that finally anybody, and it wasn't even like me and you had been hammering Brad Stevens, had called for any kind of this isn't right, what's going on, or Brad Stevens in Boston. And the going got tough, and he just basically ups and quits. And you're right about the timing of this. Would he have been tired of coaching had Ainge decided he still wanted to run the Celtics? If this is indeed what happened, would Ainge be stepping down and saying, I'm done with this, had Brad Stevens not gone to ownership and said he was tired of coaching? These two things between Ainge and Stevens just coincidentally happen at the same exact time. They both get tired of their jobs. That doesn't pass the sniff test. You basically have bouquets at your feet for making an Eastern Conference final a couple times, and that what burns you out of coaching? He quit. He quit on the Boston Celtics sidelines when the going got tough for one season finally, and people woke up and realized, you're overrated, Brad. And now you're an executive? Why? Because you recruited some decent recruits and Butler? That warrants you to know how to sign Kemba Walker to a deal? Oof, this is tough sledding in Boston.
44 years old, 3 Eastern Conference Finals in the last 5 years, and suddenly doesn't want to coach anymore. Bogues, I mean, defend it.
I don't even know where to begin. I know why Sean is talking like this, DA. I don't know how you are where you are. And the way you're responding right now, I believe that you believe maybe 10% of the things you've said in the last 15 minutes. No, I believe everything I said.
I'm laughing because you rarely get upset with me, so I'm laughing because I want to hear why. What did I say that's wrong?
Well, I mean, you said a number of things that you can't actually back up or prove, whether they're wrong or not. Now, I agree. We don't know the full story. And I am also confused by the Celtics logic of, okay, we need a new executive, and it would be harder to find one of those than a new head coach. We're going to promote our head coach to executive and then go replace him. I don't necessarily understand that. But to my first objection, I guess, is I can't believe that you can be dismissive of the possibility of Brad Stevens simply not wanting to be a head coach anymore and do something different. Whether you like it or not, that's an acceptable decision that he can make for his life. I mean, I've never heard you tell Barry Sanders that he quit on the Lions, and I'm not comparing Brad Stevens to Barry Sanders, the football player. I'm just saying people that walked away with plenty of time left, near their peak, at their peak,
you've never to be a head coach. He's still under contract with the Celtics that he signed to be the head coach.
And so your logic is that they He quit, and they said, here's your reward. I'm going to promote you. They put him in a job that you said they're hiding him as GM. They're hiding him as the guy who's going to pick the roster for the new head coach. He's a tenured professor. That was your comparison? They're hiding him in this job?
Yes. Well, I think that if he's under contract and they're paying him and they don't want him to coach, or he just quit in coaching to keep him under contract and to keep him employed, they got to give him a job, right? I mean, if he doesn't want to coach and he's still under contract, what are they going to do? Make him the monitor? The hall monitor? The janitor? What are they going to do? He's going to fix the AC.
They're going to say, give me my money back. If he quits, they don't have to pay him.
Well,
they don't have. If he quits, they don't have to pay him. That's they go, great. We're going to save our money and give it to somebody else.
So that's why
everyone that wrote about this.
That's why I opened up saying that they're too loyal. They're too loyal because they want to keep him employed around there.
So that's a fine conversation to have, that they're too insular, that they need a new voice. I can't argue against that. There should be somebody from the outside, and maybe there will be somebody. I think I saw Landry Fields' name yesterday, that he's the assistant GM in Atlanta, and he might be brought in to actually do the technical thing because Stevens has not negotiated a contract. So all of that's fine. I just don't know how that leads you down the road of destroying the guy for the last 15 minutes.
If they're going to bring in an assistant GM to do the GM stuff, then they are hiding Brad Stevens. Then they're not even letting him be the GM.
No, but that's a common structure in multiple places. There are football teams that have a GM, and then there's a guy that does the nuts and bolts of caps and contracts. That's the way. That's not a unique situation. Multiple teams are set up like that.
Well,
across
so then
multiple
what
sports.
is Brad Stevens going to do if he doesn't do the GM stuff? He's just going to what, draft? He's just going to try to go on free agent tours?
No. Come on. Again, like this really is what you're saying to me. You know how this works. He's the front man. He talks, he looks, we identify players, we meet, but then there's also a guy that makes sure they don't break any of the bazillion rules that are involved in contracts.
Okay. All right. Then that's fine. Brad Stevens has obviously never done that before. So they've promoted a guy into a position doing something he's never done before, who happens to still be under contract for him, so that they can keep paying him and he has a job, but he doesn't really have a real job. Okay, that's fine.
No, that's not what I said, and that's not what's going on here. I don't understand
It might be.
No, sure, it might be, and you have certainly better sources in Boston than I do, but everyone that wrote about this yesterday, the Boston Globe, the Herald, everyone that wrote this said that this began with Ainge months, if not more than that, just contemplating his future with the organization, that he went to them months ago and said, I want out. And they said, give us, take a few weeks, take a few months, and then let's make sure this is what you want to do. And then when he said, this is what I want to do, then they went to Brad Stevens. This didn't begin with Brad Stevens going, guys, I'm out. And they go, oh, please don't leave, Brad. Please don't leave. We'll give you anything you want, which is what you've been saying for the last 20 minutes.
Well, what's the next objection that you have?
You guys, my normal ones that you guys have dismissed. I mean, I know I've defended Brad Stevens, but I am nowhere near those who love Brad Stevens, who thought he was the next coming of John Wooden / Coach K / Red Auerbach. But you guys go in the complete opposite direction by dismissing. You say it like it's easy, like it's nothing. They went to 3 Eastern Conference Finals in 4 years.
I didn't dismiss his success.
What does that mean, Sean? Who else has done that? Give me the list
They're
of
the
coaches.
Boston Celtics, and the Eastern Conference has sucked up until this year. I'd hope they made an Eastern Conference final. Bogusch, you could have coached the Celtics to the Eastern Conference final during Brad Stevens' tenure.
Again, I can't argue with that. That's nonsense. No, I can't. No, you couldn't have. I mean, again, last week you said they haven't sniffed the finals. They were in 3 Eastern Conference finals. That's how you sniff the finals.
Oh,
Your Nets haven't sniffed the finals.
So I sniffed my jeans. That means I sniffed my ass? Come on, Bogusch. Give me a break.
No, you give me a break. You have so many good arguments here, and you go so far in the wrong direction. That's what makes me and Cap angry. You can criticize Brad Stevens on a level of 5 out of 10. You go to 11 out of 10.
He's overrated. He felt the heat this year, and he bowed out. He quit on the Boston Celtics when he finally had a little bit of
Let's
criticism.
address
He's
that.
running
the
the
whether
team.
He's overrated or underrated, okay? Because that's a different conversation. Bogues, what do you think of just about a 44-year-old guy that's only coached 8 years of the NBA and has had relative success, as you said?
Yes.
The first year they were bad, suddenly he's quitting coaching? That seems bizarre.
It is. I'm confused. I didn't see it coming, but I also didn't see Brad Stevens wanting to leave Butler and coach the Celtics, and he did that out of nowhere. And we had him on this air, and we asked him why and how did no one know? He said, well, no one ever asked me if I wanted to coach in the NBA. So maybe he wants to be an NBA GM as well, and now here's the opportunity. I'm in no position to question what a guy makes with his life choices. I mean, I don't think this is a cop-out. I don't think this is him running. And if it is, I can't tell because I'm not in his head. But he's running the Celtics. He's not some kind of AD emeritus where he's going to just shake hands and fundraise. He's running the Celtics.
But see, to me, you're convoluting your own argument. You're saying that he's in this position of great influence running the Celtics, but then also saying, but he's not really doing the hard stuff. The hard stuff's left to the guy that knows how to do the
I said
GM
he's not doing the technical stuff, the stuff that he doesn't have training in. He's never negotiated a contract. He's never had to deal with agents. That's where they're going to get him help. But he knows who's a good basketball player. He knows who would work on his roster. He knows where this current roster is broken. You convoluted what I said. And again, there are GMs everywhere. In Pittsburgh, Kevin Colbert is the first to top of my head. He's the GM, but what's the guy's name? Omar Khan? Omar Khan is right below him negotiating contracts because they're two different things. Because one is about legal terms and laws and rules, and the other is about football.
But Kevin Colbert knows how to do that stuff because he's been in a front office for 20 years. Kevin Colbert ascended to the position of power where basically Brad Stevens is skipping the position of knowing how to do the job to just get into the major position of power. And my problem here is that Brad Stevens, at 44 years old, when we've talked about or heard the reporting about why they're making this move, it wasn't Brad has always dreamed of being a GM. It was Brad was tired of coaching. And that's, to me, the smoking gun. That this wasn't we always viewed Brad Stevens as a GM in waiting. It was Brad was tired of coaching, and so we had to give him something. That's where it starts, that he's been tired since the bubble of coaching. That, to me, is the smoking gun. Plenty more on this with the Celtics. Got to take a break.